Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about menopause. I mean, what I love about your background and interest is that not only are you a menopause consultant, having worked in the corporate world on this topic, but also you're a nutritionist and an author of Delicious Healthy Menopause, because there are ways in which the things we put into our body can help us manage some of the symptoms. So with Menopause Awareness Month, it's a pleasure to have you. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
I'm returning the favour to you as well. So, Menopause Awareness Month. Now, I know you probably get asked this a lot, but what are 3 key things that most people are still unaware of when it comes to menopause? I mean, I know most people think hot flushes and your period stop.
Yeah, and they're right.
Yeah.
Lots of women will have hot flushes, and at some point the periods will stop. But I think there are 3 things that a lot of people are not always aware of. The first one is, yes, a lot of women, and probably most of women, will have this horrible symptom, sometimes debilitating. But there is still about a quarter of the women population who will be able to manage the symptom quite well, as in there will be mild symptoms or completely manageable symptoms, which brings a lot of hope in the fact that, you know, it's not going to be hell for everyone, and there is a lot that we can do about it.
Good. That's the thing, isn't it? It's just there's a lot we can do about it. That's the point. If we are willing to accept it, we can do something. Sorry, I interrupted you. Carry on.
That's where I was coming to. My second point is exactly, there is so much you can do to prepare. It's not a question of just waiting for things to happen to you. You can be extremely proactive in the way you deal with things. We know now that there are a number of things that a number of factors actually that are likely to trigger some of the symptoms. For example, obesity, for example, smoking, for example, you know, not having a good sleep routine, that are triggers to so many menopause symptoms. So if before getting to perimenopause you manage to, you know, deal with them or improve them, that will have a massive effect on your symptoms, whether it's about the frequency, the intensity, or just the symptoms themselves. So I think that's also something really important to find out, and the message is not strong enough on that. It might not be sufficient for all the women, but for a number of women, there is no doubt that will definitely help. And can I add one more thing?
Yes.
Okay, good. So the last one is, basically, perimenopause is the last, shall I define perimenopause?
Please, because this is not understood actually, because many people, that's why I come to period stop, you get hot flushes, but actually that's almost the very end of it, whereas perimenopause is the one most of us are going through. And I'm just seeing Helena here, who knows, of course, both of us. But yes, please define perimenopause.
So, I went into the chat assuming, you know, that all the people being with us today know that. But basically the menopause, or what you reach menopause once you've not had your periods for the last 12 months. Like the 1-day anniversary of your last period. And but the issue is not once you reach menopause itself and after, it's actually the few years before that. That's when all the symptoms are, or most of the symptoms. And that's when it's really hard, because you don't usually expect it, and it comes right there. Even though there were signs before, you may not have been aware that this was going to happen and how it was going to manifest in yourself. So that's perimenopause, and that's the period I'm actually talking about, not just menopause. So on the symptoms, just going back to my third point about the symptoms, there are a number of symptoms. It depends on the papers, 30, 40, I don't know how many. But basically, the good news is you're most likely not to have all of them, and not at the same time. And most of them, the vast majority, will go away. There are just a few that will not go away. I just want to stay on that because I know you're going to ask me some other question, and that's when I want to introduce the rest of my my thoughts on that.
You are absolutely right. And I think that is a big message to get across. When we talk about the menopause, often we are actually talking about the symptoms of perimenopause, the bit before the period actually stops, which I love your definition, the anniversary of your last period. That's actually a positive reframing, because it's not a happy time. Courtney Cox did a great advert, a take on her period advert many years ago, where she talks about how menopause is absolutely awful. And it can be, because those symptoms can feel so awful. But as you said, if we know what they are, we can begin to manage them. So how do we seek help? What can we do when we notice these things are happening to us? And when might we notice as well?
Okay, so what we can do is actually know what to do beforehand, and this improvement to do. So one thing that is really, really important is stress. Stress is a massive trigger for a lot of symptoms. So if before getting into perimenopause, you know how to manage your stress level in a satisfactory way, it's likely to really help in the long term. Really, really important. It's one of the biggest triggers to a lot of symptoms. So knowing that it is, well, makes things easier. So you probably will notice when you feel under stress. So just being aware of that and having a way to deal with it will help.
And on that point about stress, it's also important to recognize, don't dismiss it just as stress, because it could be symptoms of perimenopause, which are treated slightly differently.
As well, yes. But usually it's actually, well, it's different for everyone, but usually it manifests as anxiety more than stress.
Interesting.
But it depends on women, so it's really hard to say. But from the women I've worked with or spoken with, it's more anxiety or depression than just stress itself. But of course, stress is also one of the symptoms. And that's the issue, because some of the triggers, like stress, and I was going to speak about sleep just after that, it's both a trigger and also a symptom.
Yeah.
Because it's a symptom, people think, oh yeah, I can't do anything about it, it's the age. And it's like, well, actually, you are right. But at the same time, if you have a very strong sleep routine and sleep hygiene, well, you can pretty much reduce a lot of these issues around sleep. And so that's what they have to understand. It's about mindset, because yes, it's not just sleep, that the issue. It's just everything that a lack of sleep triggers, like headaches, different cravings, and energy levels and mood swings and so on. So you have to be careful about all the implication of one thing to another. And it's just, yeah, it's complex, but it's fascinating at the same time.
It's like a hot mess, isn't it, really?
It is a mess, but I think there is, I find this satisfaction about finding a solution for your hot mess, rather than just feeling the victim and it's like, oh, I can't do anything because that's the age and I just can take HRT or go and get some days off, like
just try and cope and manage. Yes.
10 days off, and it just, yeah, but it won't sort, how you feel about things. And I think that's why it's really important to be aware that this is happening and it will go away, but you don't know when. So are you going to accept being the victim of your own physiology, because that's happening inside and you don't have much control about what's happening inside? I mean, there is a bit of control that you can have, but not much in the end. That's how the body works. And so, yeah, don't suffer. You've got something happening. Just look for a solution. There are so many options at the moment. And it's about the quality of your life. What do you want the next 30 years or maybe 40 years of your life to look like? Because yes, it's hard at the moment, but it will get better.
Yes. And on that point about the little things that we can do. So we don't have much control, but you specialize in the little elements that perhaps we can control. And a lot of that can be due to nutrition. It can be due to our behaviors that become preventative, because of course, menopause is all to do with hormones. And this is where people get confused, because I think sometimes when people say hormones, we're thinking estrogen, testosterone, which yes, but things like insulin, that's a hormone as well. And that gets affected during menopause. So your focus is on nutrition.
Yes.
Are there things that we can be eating that help, or avoiding that help, and so on? How can we help those symptoms ease?
Okay, so I was thinking of three things that you could do. The first one is to keep meat and saturated fat in your diet. I know it's not a really it's not everyone agree with that, but the reason for that is because meat and saturated fats in general have cholesterol, and cholesterol is a molecule by which, you know, every single steroid hormones, and by that, you know, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, the stress hormones, a lot of hormones starts with this starting point. So of course you will produce less of these hormones, but if you don't have the starting point, the molecule that is the starting point of this hormone, well, you will not be able to produce anything. And that's why I think it's probably not the best idea to go vegan or vegetarian at that point. I understand why moving into this type of diet may help, because you're probably cutting off all the junk food and all the sugar, and then anyone doing that would feel better. But keep some animal products in your diet, because that will make a lot of difference in your symptoms. And actually, some women went all the way, you know, found that their mental health is getting better, that their hair is reversing the color, not as gray, but get some color back. And there are some that might be just anecdotal, but I've met a lot of women in that situation. So yeah, it's an idea. Then the second thing to do that I would recommend is to remove the triggers. We know there are a lot of triggers, like coffee, like tea, alcohol, spicy food. And yes, women need it right now, you know, to give you a bit of a energy boost in the morning for work, or, you know, to relax down in the evening. And I completely understand that, but it's just the impact it's going to have, for example, on sleep or on your physiology a bit later, that might just be not worth the 10 minutes of enjoyment that you will have, or the 1 hour. I don't know. And so yes, it's about balance. It's about, you know, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? It's about mindset as well. You know, what is more important for you, to live the best life, or you to enjoy the moment?
That's a good point. Just to pull up on that one, because sometimes we just have to make those choices. We need to decide which one is most important to us, and it's okay, whatever is decided, but it's always got to be that choice, because that gives us power. This is very helpful. Thank you. Carry on, please. Sorry.
No, it's great. It's a trade-off, you know, and it's for everything. It's even before, you know, you know that if you enjoy a night out, you get tired, and it's just that, is it worth struggling during the day? Because I mean, we're digressing, obviously. Okay, going back to the third tip I would give. There is a family of food called lectins. I don't know if you heard of it. And
heard of it, but not really in the context of menopause, actually.
So this family, okay, food high in lectins, basically it's beans, lentil, pulses, wheat, nightshades, nuts and seeds. So pretty much what women on a vegetarian diet or vegan diet we eat a lot of, have been shown to trigger some bloating and gut issues. Oh. Again, you know, bloating, gut issues, that's part of the menopause symptoms. But also, you know, for healthy or people not in perimenopause, you know, they are triggering these kind of symptoms. So this is something they need to be aware of. And also to be aware that just removing or reducing the amount of this type of food might help. There is another reason why you are you're having gut issues in midlife, is because estrogen. We know estrogen is needed for everywhere, but the estrogen in the gut is removing some of the protective layers, or I'm not quite sure how to make it simple, to the protection, which means that the tight junctions are not that tight anymore, and it leaves some food into the bloodstream, and that can trigger some inflammation, some histamine intolerance, and so on. So this is why looking after the gut might be a good idea. And if you feel that you've got bloating or gut issues, just perhaps reduce a bit of this food group, and I would say between 1 and 3 weeks, and you should see an improvement. And if you see there is an improvement, that perhaps keep it not as not as important as part of your diet. And other ways around, you know, if you soak and sprout and so on, so that can help. But if you just open the can, then maybe it's not enough.
Yes, no, that's it. So what about people who have a vegan lifestyle already? So it's not a change, it's just something that they've always had. Are there supplements? Are there other things that can be done that can at least go some way to easing?
Okay, so I never work with vegans and vegetarians because I do believe it's a suboptimal diet, and I don't understand it. I mean, I understand, you know, the nutrition, but you need to do a lot of testing. You need to do a lot of supplementation and retesting to make sure that whatever supplement they're having is actually being absorbed and being used. And so that it's not just iron and B12 and D. There are so many supplements that you need to take. And in the I mean, in conclusion, it's just like, why do you're spending so much effort and money to have supplementation, and why not just, you know, introduce some food, like real food that you know will bring you everything you need. And I understand sometimes it's a religion, it's a religious
or a moral, yeah.
And I've worked with women who are vegan on some days and vegetarian, so we had a bit of a flexibility. But people who are just vegan, I find it really hard. I just can't, because I know it's I don't want to say, you know, everyone is choosing. It's just that for me, it's just not something I can really be of best use. And I know that some nutritionists are actually vegan or vegetarian, so I think that would be best to go with them, because they would know exactly the type of products that is needed and for the best results. And yeah.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense. It is asking somebody who has personal experience, has lived experience in that particular area. Because also something very important that you've said in a previous conversation with me, which reminded me when you talked about it's not just iron, it's not just vitamin D, it's not just those things. A lot of these supplements and vitamins have to work in conjunction with something else. So if you're just putting vitamin D in your diet and you're not using the thing that actually connects with it, then there's kind of no point. And I think that's something people don't realize either. It's not just putting the vitamins and supplements in. It's about having almost your body constitution able to accept that.
Yes, I think I remember this conversation. It was about vitamin D and bone health.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks, you know, that when you eat calcium, that will help your bone, but actually no, you need calcium, and you need vitamin D, and you need vitamin K, and you need boron and phosphorus, and it's not just calcium. Having calcium by itself is not going to help. It's just like vitamin D is I mean, everyone knows, especially here in the UK, that we need vitamin D in winter. But if I have just vitamin D, well, it can calcify your muscles or some tissues that you don't want to be calcified. You want the vitamin D to go into your bones, and for that you need the vitamin K2 to help. And and it's simplified nutrition that just it is not useful for anyone, and we need to be really careful of, because this is social media or the media. The people sharing messages are not always the right people. That's why if you are a vegan or vegetarian and you need some support, go for the people who are just like you and look healthy and can help you, because they will be in the best position to help.
Yes, that makes so much sense. And on that note as well, you've been in the corporate world as a trainer. You have been there, done that, seen what goes on, and seen actually how women of a certain age and the struggles that they've gone through in that workplace. So how can businesses become a bit more empathetic to menopause?
Yeah.
How can they understand us a bit more?
This is a tricky one, because at the moment menopause is so up and coming and everyone wants to do something about menopause. So there are a lot of awareness days, awareness webinars and so on, which is great. I mean, let's be honest, that's a starting point. But I realize most of the time it's just a tick box. You know, we've done that, so now we're good. and this is not sufficient. And when you try to tell them that, you know, this is a starting point, but then what do women do, you know, once they have, you know, issues and they need support, and they say, oh, we've got private insurance, we've got that and that. And then you're asking, you know, but actually, is it working? You know, do they have all the support they need? And most of the time, they have no clue. Which is what is the danger at the moment. Or just like this week, gosh, I can't remember which bank. I think it's Bank of Ireland, who announced that they are allocating 10 days for menopause issues or menopause. I mean, you can take 10 days, up to 10 days per year because of menopause symptoms. And it's like, oh, great. But do you really think that it only, I mean, the menopause, the symptoms are really bad for only 10 days, honestly? And it's a great starting point. But I have a Facebook group, and, you know, I did a poll, you know, what would you rather have, like 10 days off, because 10 days that you can take off because you're menopause, or no symptoms? And 100% is like, yeah, I'd rather have no symptoms. Which means that actually this corporate, they need a lot more than what they think is right, because menopause is a lot more than that. So the changes, I think, works in the company who have actually a really good menopause policy and understanding, is like to have an active support group. And often this is a support group for women who can just discuss freely, and they have people coming and discussing, and they have ideas, and there is no stigma. It's just about sharing what's going on, sharing solution, and sharing the load of what's happening. So this is often a really good starting point. Also, all these changes need to come from the top.
Yep.
HR, you know, if the top says, okay, this is a priority, let's do what needs to be done, then usually it helps, because it becomes part of the culture. And so this is obviously helping. And to have men involved as well. Because
yes, of course,
we know it's a woman thing, but hey, let's be honest, you know, men cannot ignore what's going on. And whether it's at work with your colleagues, or at home with your husband, your family, your friends, you know, if they are aware of what's happening and they know how to best support their women in their lives, then it's going to benefit for everyone. So yeah, each corporate is really different in let's say just a ratio, men, women, or the age of women, or what they want to achieve. But if they are serious about supporting the women going through the menopause, they need to be a lot more active than just offering a menopause awareness and private support.
Yes, you're absolutely right. This comes back again to these check boxes that people have. Mental health is part of that for a lot of organizations. And again, the message, and I agree with you, it's a great start to have 10 days off to deal with certain things. I mean, certainly if you have extremely heavy periods or whatever it might be, something like that, maybe you would absolutely welcome that. But again, that is still putting the onus onto you to manage it all by yourself. Here are your 10 days, off you go and sort yourself out. And that doesn't sit well with me. It's got to be, you're right, focus groups, maybe even options in the cafe or any dining that are available. And instead of just access to health insurance, perhaps you've got actual training or something, someone coming in to explain things a little bit better to people. And yeah, you're absolutely right. With that, how can we contact you if a business wanted you to come in and speak in this particular way about how to manage some of those symptoms?
If they want to contact me, well, you can contact me on Instagram at Severine Menem, just send me a message, or you can send me an email at hello@severinemenem.com. Or if you are a woman and wants to support, you know, I've got a private Facebook group only for women who wants to be proactive and are looking for solutions. I'm happy. Yeah, if someone needs to share, that's fine. But if they just want to share and not do anything, this is not the place to be. And Facebook group is called Phenomenal Midlife. I mean, you go facebook.com/Phenomenal Midlife, and you will find me. And can I add something else? Just one.
Yes,
I've written an ebook about what I think GP should tell you about the menopause, which they don't.
Oh my goodness, yes, this is amazing, because so many people I've spoken to, experts as well, have said actually there's not enough being done when a woman finally plucks up the courage to talk about what's quite a taboo subject with their GP. So yes, please, brilliant.
I know I'm not a GP, but I had to learn about the physiology and a number of things, and I think they should be educating women about menopause. And I know some of them are not even aware that menopause can happen before the age of 50. So this is a different side. So basically, if you want this ebook, it's free. You can go on my bio here on Instagram and you will find it. It's called Free Book. And I think it's useful. And actually, yeah, can I add something that I didn't have time to add just earlier on your first question?
Yeah.
It's very important, and it's part actually of this ebook. When we are at this transition about perimenopause, this is pretty much the last opportunity we have to deal with conditions that we've not really sorted before. Because the immune system is going to go through its changes, is going through its changes, and is going to make everything worse. So if you know you have a condition and you've left it to the side, this is probably not the best idea, because it will going to get a lot worse. So just deal with it as soon as you can, and be proactive. If you're not quite in the right age, then that will help so much more, because you will have all the menopause symptoms otherwise, plus this condition to deal with. And I think that's one of the things that the GP should tell you, and instead of just gaslighting you into, no, don't worry, come back in 6 months. It's just like, no. This is
Sorry, that's shocking.
Yeah,
that's scary. That's
I don't want that to be scary, but I want to be honest about things. For example, thyroid. The thyroid function of a woman as she ages declines, which means that she's more likely to become hypothyroidism or even Hashimoto's, if autoimmunity gets involved. And GPs, they will test like one thing and they will say, oh yeah, that's borderline, let's not worry about it, and let's wait for 6 months. But the thyroid health can decline quite a lot within the 6 months, and a woman could have some supports into taking some thyroid hormones in the meantime, before wasting 6 months of being well and unhealthy, and not unhealthy, unwell and suffering, because the GP couldn't just like prescribe something or just see the person in the next, 2 months or 3 months and see, how to stabilize. And yeah, I know that's the NHS, and we know why, they do that. But I also think we need to be proactive and just stay on top of things, and let's not let that happen to us, and proactive. And that's why I think having a holistic healthcare practitioner or private doctor might really make a difference when you start having symptoms, or when you're getting older, and doing checks, cholesterol checks, thyroid checks, and so on. Even if you don't have anything, might really be a good idea, because you might detect things before actually the symptoms arrive or the issue arrives, and then you can know what it is and you can do something about it, rather than just waiting to see if it improves. And then you're probably 1 year down the line and you don't know what it is, and it's getting worse. And then when you finally find out, it was probably something easy to sort in the first place, but you were not aware of that. So that's why I'm saying, this is the best time to just do things for your health, because once at least you can be okay for a few years if everything is fine, if nothing is worsening. Yes. Sorry.
That's the key message of Phenomenal Midlife. You're absolutely right. It is about being proactive. It is about seeking solutions where we can. And it is about saying something isn't right and I need to deal with it, and I can deal with it. So I think it does start with a lot of self-knowledge and self-acceptance as well. And that's, again, about celebrating our bodies and celebrating who we are as people, and wanting them to be as healthy as we can for the rest of our lives. Severine, thank you so much for joining me. It's been so much fun, so energizing. I'm going to download that ebook now. So thank you so much. Take care.